Now, that was this morning. And then tonight, even though Sarah Fitzpatrick is already being sued by Kash Patel, and even though she may be being criminally investigated by Kash Patel's FBI, tonight, The Atlantic's Sarah Fitzpatrick published yet another incredible story about, ding, 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 you guessed it, Kash Patel. Now, in this one, 8 people familiar with the matter, including yet again current and former FBI officials, told Fitzpatrick that it is not unusual for Patel to travel with a supply of personalized branded bourbon. Who among us? Now, the 750 milliliter bottle that he travels with is engraved with Kash Patel's name and title, FBI Director. Classy. As well as the symbol of the FBI shield. Now, if you look just below the shield on the screen, you will see Kash Patel's name yet again, but this time spelled his preferred way, of course, with a $sign instead of an S. Again, stay classy, Kash Patel, stay classy. Patel also appears to have signed some bottles, writing his signature and then the number 9, presumably because he's the 9th person to hold the title of the director of the FBI, which leads me to believe he has spent an awful lot of time on this particular merch project, right? Now, Fitzpatrick also writes that Patel has distributed these self-branded bottles to staff and civilians while on official business, including during at least one FBI event, and that Patel has even used Justice Department aircraft to transport cases of his bourbon merch. Now, when The Atlantic reached out for comment, the FBI didn't even dispute that Patel has been giving out these branded booze bottles. Instead, a spokesperson said that Patel has followed all applicable ethical guidelines and pays for any personal gifts himself, and portrayed the gifting of booze, bourbon, personalized bourbon, as routine, saying that the bottles in question are part of a tradition in the FBI that started well over a decade ago. Is it now? And guess what? When Fitzpatrick tried to fact-check that statement, it fell completely apart. The FBI declined to provide images of bottles bearing the names of any past directors, maybe because they don't exist. And when Fitzpatrick asked a former senior FBI official if he had ever seen any personally branded liquor bottles distributed by any previous FBI directors, he burst out laughing. Now, the story here is, it's not just that Kash Patel allegedly drinks a lot. By this point, we've all seen him drinking with our own eyes. We all remember that visual. The story is that Kash Patel allegedly drinks a ton at work as the boss in a workplace that traditionally has had a zero-tolerance approach to drinking on the job and even the abuse of alcohol off duty, because it is our chief law enforcement agency. As one former FBI agent told Fitzpatrick, the bottles are demoralizing, as they suggest one set of standards for the FBI's director and another for the rest of the bureau. Now, the lawyer for another former agent, former assistant director in charge of the FBI's Washington field office, Stephen Jensen, told Fitzpatrick, quote, "There are line agents out there spending their nights and weekends trying to finish warrants, write reports, plan arrests. Yet the FBI director apparently has the time to design logos, go to hockey games, sit for multi-hour podcast interviews. This is one of the most serious jobs in the country, not a vehicle for self-promotion and branding." That's very well stated. Now, when Fitzpatrick published her first big scoop about Kash Patel last month, part of what was so amazing about it was that she had more than 24 sources. I spoke to her that very night that the piece came out, and she told me that even more people from inside the bureau were already trying to talk to her, trying to tell her about Kash Patel. And they weren't doing that lightly.
These are not the types of people who are willing to speak out outside of the FBI, especially right now, because Kash Patel is going after people with polygraphs in a way that has never happened at the Bureau. So for it to be this level of alarm, this is people genuinely concerned that America is a danger as a result of this conduct. And I feel, a real responsibility to take care of that reporting incredibly carefully.
Sarah Fitzpatrick said that those people spoke to her last month because they worried about the safety of our country, with this guy in charge of keeping us safe. That guy right there. There you go, with Kristi Noem. And now, even with a potential criminal investigation into leakers and a massive defamation lawsuit, more people have come forward to say that they do not think Kash Patel's behavior is fit for his office. Now, I want you to just keep that story in your head. I want you to just think about how hard the FBI is working to try to catch leakers who say bad things about Kash Patel's personal behavior. And I want you to compare that to this.
Breaking news now. A very influential Democrat from Virginia, State Senator Luis Lucas, is at the center of a major FBI corruption investigation. Right now, in fact, agents are executing search warrants across the Commonwealth, including her office. Alex Hogan is in Portsmouth, Virginia. Alex.
Now, this morning, when the FBI raided the office of a prominent Democratic state official in Virginia, Fox News was on the scene. They had camera crews on location, ready to film as SWAT teams and FBI vans raided Virginia State Senator Luis Lucas's office and nearby businesses. And that is pretty impressive, considering that Portsmouth, Virginia, you can see it on the map there, is about a 3-hour drive from Fox's office in D.C. It is 200 miles away. Now, maybe Fox just got lucky. Maybe they just had a reporter around the corner just kind of hanging out in Portsmouth and a whole camera crew when the raid started. But it strikes me as a lot more plausible that someone in the FBI leaked the timing of the raid to them. Now, while Luis Lucas is a huge deal in Virginia politics, she's the Speaker of the state Senate. She's primarily known on the national stage for just one thing. Earlier this year, she led the effort to redraw the state's congressional maps, which could help Democrats win another 4 seats in the midterms and counterbalance the gerrymandering Republicans have done in other states. And the raid was reportedly part of an investigation that opened under the Biden administration that examined potential corruption and bribery. But beyond that, the Department of Justice has not released any information. Now, we don't have, as I've said, any real details on the reasoning for the raid or what exactly they're accusing Lucas of doing. So is it plausible there was actual wrongdoing by Lucas? Sure, it's plausible. But the context is everything here. Because a source familiar with the matter tells MSNOW's Carol Lennig that Trump's former U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, the district where this investigation is likely based, believed bringing a case against Luis Lucas would be good for the White House. That bringing a bribery case against a prominent Democrat before the midterms would be good for the White House. Even though other prosecutors at the office were not sure about the strength of the case. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? As Virginia's Attorney General Jay Jones put it today, we simply do not have sufficient information about the reported FBI activity in Portsmouth. However, several previous actions of the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Virginia have undermined public confidence in that office. I urge everyone to exercise restraint and judgment until the relevant facts are known in this matter. Now, there's a lot of stories going on. I just want you to keep that story in your head. I want you to think about how the FBI raided the office of a prominent Democratic lawmaker right after she did something Trump did not like, and how Fox News just happened to be there to film it. I want you to think about that and compare it to this. Because yesterday, we learned that the Justice Department has agreed to, quote, return or destroy evidence seized from MAGA Republican Congressman Andy Ogles. And if the name Andy Ogles isn't ringing any bells, it's probably because former Congressman George Santos, you remember that guy, sort of stole his thunder for a while. Because for a while, the two seemed to be competing for the title of the most prolific liar in Congress. I mean, according to local Tennessee news reports, Ogles claimed to be an economist, but it turned out he had only ever actually taken one single community college economics course, and he barely passed it. He claimed to have served for years on the board of directors of a city that it turns out does not have a board of directors at all. I could go on, but you get the point here, right? Back in 2024, the FBI seized Andy Ogles' phone as part of an investigation. You see, among the things Andy Ogles appears to have lied about were campaign contributions, a serious thing to lie about. He claimed that he had donated $320,000 to his own campaign back in 2022. But it turned out that the congressman appeared to be broke. In his financial disclosures, he did not appear to even have a checking or a savings account of any kind. Now, Ogles later admitted that he had not, in fact, donated $320,000 to his own campaign, but he never really explained why he apparently lied about all of it. And campaign contributions are serious business. There are a lot of laws involved. So the FBI seized Ogles' phone. That was at the end of 2024. But guess what? When Trump took office last year, suddenly, just 11 days into Trump's new term, the career prosecutors handling the case withdrew from it. The case was handed up to be run completely out of Main Justice in Washington, D.C. Now, at the same time, Ogles was in the running. He put himself in the running for, I should say, a new highly competitive title, biggest suck-up to Donald Trump. And he did a lot to try to get there. He introduced a bill to give Trump the power to buy Greenland. He He nominated Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. And maybe most amazingly, Ogles proposed a constitutional amendment to allow Trump to serve a third term. He even specifically worded that amendment so it would only allow third terms from presidents who hadn't served 2 consecutive terms, meaning it would let Trump serve a third term, but not Obama. There you go. And now, after all that sucking up, the investigation into Ogles lying about a massive campaign contribution seems to be just quietly going away. In a vacuum, each of these stories individually are reason for concern about what is happening at the Justice Department right now. But taken together, they are a blaring alarm. And when you put them in the context of the past year, it's all the worse. The Justice Department has investigated or charged so many perceived Trump enemies, it is genuinely getting hard to track, and we may miss people in this list. Former FBI Director James Comey, former CIA Director John Brennan, New York Attorney General Letitia James, Senator Mark Kelly, Senator Alyssa Slotkin, Congresswoman Maggie Goodlander, Congressman Jason Crow, Congresswoman Christy Houlihan, Congressman Chris DeLuzio, former National Security Advisor John Bolton, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook, Senator Adam Schiff, former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, St. Paul Mayor Kelly Herr, Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty. The list is just unfathomable at this point. But the pattern is clear. Trump is using the Justice Department to help his friends and go after his enemies. Last night, former President Barack Obama issued a stark warning on exactly this issue during the interview with Stephen Colbert.
We can survive a lot. Bad policy, funky elections. There's a bunch of stuff that, we can overcome. We can't overcome the politicization of the criminal justice system, the awesome power of the state. You can't have a situation in which whoever's in charge of the government starts using that to go after their political enemies or reward their friends.
Could not think of 2 better people to help us try and make sense of all this news tonight. Andrew Weissman is the former general counsel of the FBI. Tim Weiner is a Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter who has reported extensively on the history and inner workings of the Bureau. He's the author of the book Enemies Inside the FBI, and his latest book is called The Mission: The CIA in the 21st Century. Very apt reading. Everybody should get to reading. It's very applicable right now. Andrew, let me start with you. Let's just start with Kash Patel, because as I just tried to outline here, the FBI is now investigating, reportedly, the Atlantic Sarah Fitzpatrick at the same time that the director is personally suing the Atlantic for $250 million. Obviously, none of it has stopped her from continuing to report on Kash Patel, which speaks to her commitment to reporting and her boldness as well. But it doesn't take a lawyer to see this is a massive conflict. What do you make of all of this?
Well, of course, it is a massive conflict. You can't have the FBI suing civilly and then bringing a criminal case. And the criminal case, I should say, is one where it's hard to see how you could, if the reporting is true and accurate, how it is that there's a crime here that could be criminally investigated. So not only is it a conflict, but it seems like an abuse of process, because there's, even if everything happened, which is that there was a leak of information to a reporter, it is not a crime to receive information from people at the FBI. We're not talking about anything classified. We're talking about something that is simply derogatory information. It's not even a crime for the people at the FBI to have given that information to a reporter, because again, it is not classified information that we're talking about. So a massive, massive conflict of interest in order to have the FBI sort of on both sides of this. And I think it's really something that when I think about this, and I'm thinking about sort of what is the lesson here, I would go back to the Supreme Court of the United States. Everyone here knows that the Supreme Court said that there was immunity, criminal immunity, for bringing sham investigations, and they threw out that part of Jack Smith's criminal grand jury indictment. Well, that means that abusive criminal cases are not subject to any sort of criminal sanction. There is immunity for those. And so I think they really unleashed the kind of thing that we are seeing, where you see these sort of abusive investigations, and the president and people doing his bidding are really confident that there is not going to be criminal liability, both because the Supreme Court has their back and because the president can always just pardon them for any sort of potential criminality on their part. So I think we're in an incredibly dangerous situation given the state of the law here.
I want to ask you more about that. I just want to level set it. Sometimes we all get, not us necessarily, but a lot of people get a little numb to what's happening in this administration, what we talk about nearly every day. I mean, and Tim, former FBI directors, of course, have improperly used Bureau resources for political matters before. But Patel's motive here, to Andrew's point, is clearly personal. I mean, this is his personal behavior they're reporting on. It's not classified information about the work of the Bureau. You know the history of the FBI better than almost anyone. Level set for us here. How does this all stack up against past abuses of power by the FBI director?
Well, J. Edgar Hoover, who ran the Bureau for 48 years, had one hard and fast rule for his agents: don't embarrass the Bureau. Kash Patel embarrasses the Bureau with every whiskey-scented breath he takes. And beyond the political prosecutions of Trump's enemies like Jim Comey, beyond the harassment of the press, what Kash Patel has done to the FBI is conduct an ideological purge at the behest of the president. He has taken down the leaders of the Bureau's national security and intelligence divisions. He has keel-hauled pretty much every agent who ever investigated Donald Trump for his theft of classified documents that he stashed at Mar-a-Lago, for the January 6th insurrection, for his pussyfooting with Russian intelligence in the 2016 elections. And the ideological purge has also been going on at the CIA, also been going on at the Justice Department, also with the State Department and the Pentagon. Now, I don't want to compare the two regimes directly, but in Pol Pot's Cambodia, people were purged because they wore glasses, because they could read. And in Donald Trump's America, people are being purged because they can see things clearly.
It feels very difficult, and thanks to the men and women who are still serving the FBI right now and across government. Let me ask you specifically, because I think this is important for people to understand the culture inside the Bureau. I mean, Patel, there's so many things that you just outlined so perfectly, but his behavior, given this latest reporting, it almost feels like self-parody at this point. I mean, it's a guy accused of drinking to excess, in using his own position to personally brand bottles of bourbon. Again, it may not be the most important thing that he's doing that's egregious, but talk to us, Tim, a little bit about kind of the culture inside the FBI and how that kind of behavior, because we heard a little bit of this in Sarah's new reporting about how that offended people there, and it felt kind of egregious, particularly to them.
The Bureau is a very buttoned-down place. It's very white, it's very male, it's very conservative, and 98% of the people there are straight arrows. When a QAnon-adjacent right-wing podcaster with a taste for hopping on the FBI's Gulfstream and jetting off to the Olympics or to his home in Las Vegas to watch wrestling matches takes over and starts keel-hauling people because Donald Trump doesn't like what the Bureau did to run him down for the crimes he committed, it sends I think chilling effect is too mild word, but a wave of horror through law enforcement professionals to deal with someone who's this unstable, this unreliable, and who is, if he's too drunk to wake up in the morning, as Sarah reliably reported, what if, God forbid, a crisis strikes the United States? We're at war with Iran. Donald Trump has broken or damaged relationships with all our intelligence allies. God forbid a crisis should strike. Will Kash Patel answer the bell?
That's a real question. I mean, part of the reporting is that he was drinking to the point where he couldn't be woken up. Andrew, you alluded to, gosh, the moment we're in, and we've had so many conversations, and you break this down better than almost anybody. Part of what I think we've learned here is that it's important to fight back and to not just lay down and allow this administration to bully you. And that's easier said than done, I realize. It takes a lot of courage to do that. Kash Patel is suing The Atlantic and its reporter Sarah Fitzpatrick. It seems like there's a lot that could come out of that case that could risk even more embarrassment for Patel. But from a legal perspective, what would you advise The Atlantic to do at this point in time?
Well, look, the safe thing for The Atlantic to do in that kind of case is to make a motion to dismiss. It's very, very hard for a public figure to win a defamation case. And of course, as you know, being a journalist, truth is a defense. But one thing that I think The Atlantic could consider doing, because remember, it is in journalism, and if it really has the goods, and it certainly appears that they do, having now doubled down on 2 stories, which and have multiple reported sources, is actually essentially call Kash Patel's bluff and say, you know what, we want to go to trial. You say that we don't have the goods. You say that this is not true. Let's go to trial now and make him have to sit for a deposition. Let him have to testify. Remember, it's a civil case, so he can be called under oath to testify about all of this and to have to say under oath whether this is true or not true. So to me, that would be, obviously, it's not the safest course, but it also, from a journalist perspective, is something that could bring a lot of attention to the veracity of their story and denigrate Kash Patel. One very quick thing, Jen, I want to say, having worked for Robert Mueller, the idea of besmirching each and every former director of the FBI. Robert Mueller was somebody who had to, for every speech he gave, you had to categorically take out the word I. The idea that he just would refuse to talk about himself. And that is true, that same sort of ethos of many other directors. Louis Freeh was built in the same mold. Chris Wray was built in the same mold. Even if you disagree with their policies and the way they handled the Bureau, they just the idea that they would both be giving out liquor and selling merch about themselves is so deplorable that that's something that Kash Patel is doing.
Andrew Weissman, Tim Weiner, thank you both so much for being here with me tonight.
You're welcome.
Coming up, do you want real investigations into all of these insane allegations about Kash Patel? I bet you do. Do you want Kash Patel to answer questions under oath about all of this? So does my next guest, and he's going to be the chairman of the Judiciary Committee if and when Democrats win back the House. Congressman Jamie Raskin is standing by, and he joins me next. Here's something that is very, very, very important to remember right now. If Democrats win back the House in November, the gavel for chairman of the powerful House Judiciary Committee will pass to Congressman Jamie Raskin of Maryland. Now, a few weeks ago, after the Atlantic's bombshell reporting we just talked about revealed details about Kash Patel's alleged excessive drinking and completely erratic behavior, Congressman Raskin sent to Trump's FBI director this letter. You can see it on your screen. It's available online, too, which included a number of questions about those alleged drinking habits, as well as a request that Patel take an alcohol use screening test. And my guess is, after this brand new reporting from The Atlantic tonight about Patel's personalized bourbon stash, Congressman Raskin has more questions. And again, all of Congressman Raskin's questions and all of Congressman Raskin's letters could turn into subpoenas and investigations very, very soon. Joining me now is Congressman Jamie Raskin, top Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee. I know you had a lot of questions, and people should read it. We'll share it so people can read it. The letter you wrote to Kash Patel around the first story here, after The Atlantic published its first story back in April. Now we have this follow-up. What new questions do you have about what is happening at Trump's FBI under Kash Patel?
Well, the reports keep coming out of chaos in the office and an absentee director and, drinking during the working day and so on. And their response to all these things is to try to go after the reporters, to either try to determine whether they can get any goods on the reporters, whether there's any dirt on them searching through FBI databases, or alternatively to crack down on the so-called leakers involved. Well, how about dealing with the underlying problem, which was what our letter was about originally? I mean, the original Atlantic report quoted or paraphrased at least something like 20 different people about this. It seems kind of far-fetched and nonsensical to suggest that all of this was just made up. And if Kash Patel is willing to go ahead and sue the Atlantic, then apparently he's got nothing to be afraid of. He should respond to this questionnaire, which is used for public sector workers all the time, or private sector workers, about whether there's a drinking problem that is interfering with their ability to do their job. And since nobody else in the Trump administration will deal with the issue, I think that Congress has got to exercise its oversight powers.
A lot of people, you referenced a number of sources. There are a lot of sources for this news story, too. People have come forward to speak with Sarah Fitzpatrick and other reporters. People also have come forward and have wanted to talk to Congress or have talked to some Democrats in Congress. What should a whistleblower, what should people understand out there about whistleblower protections for Congress, that Congress has for whistleblowers? And what should a whistleblower do if there's somebody watching who has information that works in the FBI or the Justice Department, or wherever they may be, they don't have a lawyer. What do they do if they want to speak with Congress?
Well, first of all, the Judiciary Committee, like other committees in Congress, can be approached by people either by phone call, by 1-800 number. They can write to us. They can email us. They have a right to give us information about misconduct or criminal activity that are taking place in any part of the government, in any department of the government. The Whistleblower Protection Act protects people against retaliation because they reported misconduct, civil or criminal misconduct, taking place inside the government. So people, have a right to know what their rights are and what their responsibilities are. But obviously, it's a serious thing for people to consider coming forward. And so we try to operate with complete confidentiality and total respect for whatever situation they're in. Now, people who go to the press are in, a somewhat different situation about that. But in any event, there should be no retaliation against people just for telling the truth about what's taking place in our government. And that just violates the First Amendment of the Constitution. People have a right to speak. And, rather than engage in some kind of hopeless, fruitless cover-up, Kash Patel should try to deal with what the real issues are. And that goes generally for the administration across every kind of corruption taking place in all of the different departments and agencies.
Congressman Jamie Raskin, I hope you're getting rest, you're going on hikes, you're caring for yourself, because if Democrats win back the House, you're going to have a lot on your plate. Thank you, as always, for being here with us tonight.
You bet, Jen.
Okay, coming up, Donald Trump's Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick finally went behind closed doors to answer questions about Jeffrey Epstein and about visiting Epstein's island. And one Democrat said if Donald Trump sees the transcript of that deposition, he'll fire him. I'm going to tell you why it was such a disaster and everything we know about it when we come back.